Some nights feel normal. Some nights feel quiet and soft. And then there are nights that change a life forever, even when the person living through it does not notice right away. The night Kai met the Ruthless Alpha was one of those nights, the kind that hides big storms behind small choices. Kai was an Omega who lived in a small apartment above a tiny cafe. The walls were thin, and the roof leaked when it rained too hard, but it was the only place he could afford. Every morning he woke up before the sun, tied his apron, and greeted strangers with gentle smiles. He loved drawing more than anything, yet he rarely had time for it. Life had taught him to survive first and dream later. The city where Kai lived was loud and proud, ruled by powerful alphas who walked like kings. Omegas like Kai were expected to stay quiet and avoid trouble. Kai tried his best to do exactly that. He kept his head down, finished his work, and helped anyone who looked lonely. He believed kindness could make the world softer, even if the world never seemed to notice. That evening, dark clouds covered the sky. Rain fell in heavy sheets, hitting the cafe windows like small drums. Most customers had already rushed home, leaving only the sound of water and the smell of warm bread. Kai wiped the last table and sighed, thinking about unpaid bills and broken dreams. Just as he reached for the light switch, the cafe door slammed open. A tall man stepped inside, soaked from head to toe. His coat was dark and heavy. His eyes were sharp, like someone always ready for a fight. The air felt tense the moment he entered, as if even the rain had followed him inside. Kai froze for a second. He could tell right away, the stranger was an alpha, and not the gentle kind. The man looked injured. A small line of red marked his arm. He said nothing. He only stood there, breathing slowly, watching everything like he expected danger to appear from the shadows. Kai's first instinct was fear. His second instinct was kindness. Without asking questions, Kai guided the stranger to a chair and brought a clean towel. He heated soup and placed it gently in front of him. The alpha stared at Kai as if he did not understand why someone would help him without asking for money or favors. "My name is Kai," he said softly, trying to make the silence less heavy. The man hesitated before answering. "Riven." The name carried weight. Even Kai, who tried to stay away from rumors, had heard whispers about a ruthless alpha leader named Riven, someone powerful, dangerous, and impossible to trust. Kai's hands trembled for a moment, but he did not step away. Instead, he cleaned the small wound carefully, like he would for anyone else. Outside, the storm grew louder. Thunder rolled through the sky. Inside the cafe, something unexpected happened. The quiet between Kai and Riven began to feel warm instead of cold. Riven watched Kai draw small pictures on napkins while waiting for the soup to cool. Kai noticed that Riven's serious face softened when he thought no one was looking. Hours passed without either of them realizing it. Riven spoke little, but when he did, his voice sounded tired rather than cruel. Kai shared simple stories about the cafe and his love for art. For the first time in a long while, Kai felt seen, not as a weak Omega, but as a person with thoughts and dreams. As the rain slowly calmed, the world outside grew quiet again. Kai offered Riven a place to rest for the night since the storm had flooded the streets. Riven hesitated, clearly unused to trusting anyone. But something about Kai's gentle eyes made him agree. That night was not loud or dramatic. It was filled with quiet conversations, shared silence, and two lonely people finding comfort in each other's presence. Kai felt safe, even though he knew Riven carried shadows around him. Riven, for the first time in years, allowed himself to rest without fear. Morning arrived too quickly. Kai woke up to sunlight slipping through the curtains. The chair where Riven had rested was empty. The towel was folded neatly. The only sign that the alpha had been there was a small drawing Kai had made the night before, now placed carefully on the table as if it meant something important. Kai smiled sadly. He told himself it had only been a strange night, a brief meeting that would fade like rainwater on the street. He returned to his normal life, never guessing that the quiet moments he had shared with Riven were the beginning of a future filled with betrayal, healing, and love he could not yet imagine. And somewhere far away, Riven stood on a rooftop, holding Kai's drawing in his hand, unable to forget the gentle Omega who had treated him like a human instead of a monster. The storm had ended. But the real story had only just begun. Life did not change all at once for Kai. At first, everything felt normal. The cafe still smelled like fresh bread every morning. The same customers came in with sleepy faces and small coins. The rainstorm faded into memory like a strange dream. Kai told himself that meeting Riven had been nothing more than a quiet moment between two strangers. But slowly, small changes began to appear. Kai started waking up tired even after long sleep. The smell of coffee, which he once loved, made his stomach twist. One afternoon he dropped a tray because his hands felt weak and shaky. His boss told him to go home early and rest. Kai laughed it off, thinking he was just overworked, but a quiet worry grew in his chest. Days passed, and the strange feelings did not go away. One morning, while opening the cafe, Kai felt dizzy and had to sit down on the floor. A regular customer noticed his pale face and gently suggested he visit a clinic. Kai did not want to spend money he did not have, but the fear in his body finally pushed him to go. The clinic was small and clean. The nurse spoke kindly, asking simple questions. Kai answered softly, trying to ignore the nervous shaking in his hands. After a few tests, the doctor asked him to wait. The room felt too quiet. The ticking clock sounded louder than thunder. When the doctor returned, her face was calm but serious. She told Kai something that made the world stop moving. He was pregnant. Kai stared at her, certain he had heard wrong. His mind searched for another answer, another explanation that would make more sense. But the doctor's voice stayed gentle and clear. She explained everything slowly, making sure he understood. Kai's heart raced. Memories of the rainy night came rushing back, the warm soup, the quiet talks, Riven's tired eyes. He had not expected anything to grow from that single moment of trust. Fear wrapped around him like a cold blanket. He walked home slowly, holding the small paper from the clinic. The city felt louder than usual. People laughed and rushed past him, unaware that his entire life had changed in one short sentence. When Kai reached his apartment, he sat on his bed and stared at the wall. He was scared. He was confused. And most of all, he felt alone. That evening, his childhood friend Leo came to visit. Leo had always been cheerful and protective. He noticed Kai's quiet mood right away and refused to leave until Kai spoke the truth. With trembling hands, Kai showed him the clinic paper. Leo's eyes widened, but he quickly smiled and promised everything would be okay. He hugged Kai tightly and said he would help him find Riven. He told Kai not to worry because no one should face such a big change alone. Kai felt grateful. Leo had always been like family. Yet something felt different. Leo asked many questions about Riven, where he sat, what he said, how he looked when he left. Kai answered honestly, but a small part of him noticed a strange look in Leo's eyes, one he could not fully understand. The days that followed were heavy. Kai tried to keep working, but his body felt slower. He started drawing again at night, filling pages with soft pictures of rain and quiet cafes. Sometimes he found himself drawing Riven without meaning to, sharp eyes that hid sadness, hands that looked strong but tired. Kai did not know how to find Riven. He did not even know if Riven would care. Rumors about the Ruthless Alpha filled the city. Some people said he was dangerous and cold. Others said he protected his own people with fierce loyalty. Kai felt caught between fear and hope. One evening, while closing the cafe, Kai felt a strange presence behind him. The air felt heavy, familiar. His heart beat faster without knowing why. He turned around. And there he was. Riven stood at the door, silent and strong, watching Kai with eyes full of something Kai could not yet understand, shock, worry, and something softer hidden beneath years of cold walls. Kai's hands trembled. The words felt heavy in his throat. The truth he carried suddenly felt too big to hold alone. The rain had returned outside, tapping gently against the windows like a quiet reminder of the night they first met. Kai realized that nothing in his life would ever be simple again. Some meetings feel like happy surprises. Others feel like standing in the middle of a storm that has not decided if it will hurt you or protect you. When Riven returned to Kai's life, it felt like both at the same time. The cafe lights flickered softly as rain tapped against the windows. Kai stood frozen behind the counter, staring at the tall alpha who had walked back into his world without warning. Riven looked almost the same as before, serious eyes, strong posture, quiet strength, but something about his face seemed different. He looked worried. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Kai's hands trembled slightly as he held onto the edge of the counter. He had imagined this moment many times during the past weeks. Sometimes he thought Riven would never come back. Sometimes he imagined telling him everything right away. But now that the alpha stood in front of him, words felt heavy and hard to release. Riven broke the silence first. His voice was low and careful, nothing like the cold rumors people spread about him. He asked if Kai had been safe. He asked if anyone had hurt him since the night they met. The questions surprised Kai. They sounded less like commands and more like quiet concern. Kai nodded slowly, but his eyes could not hide his fear. He knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. The paper from the clinic felt heavy in his pocket, like a secret that wanted to escape. Before Kai could decide what to say, the cafe door opened again. Leo walked inside, smiling brightly as usual. But the moment he saw Riven, his smile froze for a second. He quickly hid his reaction and greeted both of them warmly. Still, the air grew tense, like invisible lines had been drawn across the room. Leo watched carefully as Kai and Riven spoke. He asked many questions, trying to sound friendly while quietly studying the Alpha's every move. Kai felt confused by Leo's sudden interest, but he pushed the thought aside. Right now, one truth mattered more than anything else. With shaking hands, Kai asked Riven to sit down. The words came out slowly. Kai explained how his body had changed, how he had visited the clinic, and what the doctor had told him. The cafe felt silent except for the sound of rain. Riven did not interrupt. He listened with eyes that grew wider with each word. When Kai finally said the truth, that he was carrying Riven's child, the world seemed to stop moving. Riven's face showed shock first. Then disbelief. Then something deeper that Kai could not name. For a long time, Riven said nothing. Kai's heart pounded painfully. He feared anger. He feared rejection. He feared that Riven would walk away again without looking back. Instead, Riven stood up slowly and moved closer. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He simply looked at Kai with a serious expression and said he would take responsibility. His voice was firm, but not unkind. He explained that his world was dangerous and that Kai could become a target if enemies learned about the child. Kai felt a mix of relief and hurt. Riven's words sounded protective, yet also cold, like a business decision instead of an emotional one. Riven spoke about safety, plans, and protection, but he did not speak about feelings. Kai wondered if the quiet warmth from the rainy night had only been his imagination. Leo watched everything carefully from the side, his eyes thoughtful and hard to read. Riven asked Kai to move into his home where guards could protect him. Kai hesitated. He did not know if he could trust someone who seemed both kind and distant at the same time. But deep inside, he also knew that the world outside the cafe might not be safe anymore. Rumors about Riven spread quickly through the city. Some customers whispered that Kai had become important because of the Alpha's power. Others looked at him with pity, believing he had no choice in the matter. Kai felt trapped between strangers' opinions and his own uncertain heart. That night, Kai packed a small bag. He looked around his tiny apartment, the peeling paint, the small bed, the drawings on the wall. It had never been perfect, but it had been his safe place. When Riven arrived to take him to the new home, he carried Kai's bag without complaint. During the silent car ride, Kai watched the city lights pass by like fading memories. He felt fear, hope, and sadness all at once. Riven's house was large and quiet, filled with strong guards and tall gates. It felt like entering another world, a world ruled by power instead of kindness. Kai wondered if he would lose himself there. Before leaving Kai alone for the night, Riven paused at the door. For a brief second, his cold mask softened. He thanked Kai for trusting him and promised that no harm would come to him or the baby. Kai lay in a new bed that felt too big and too unfamiliar. He thought about the rainy night that had started everything. He thought about Leo's strange behavior. And he thought about the Alpha who had returned not as a stranger, but as someone tied to his future forever. Outside, the rain finally stopped. But inside Kai's heart, the storm had only just begun. Some homes feel warm the moment someone walks inside. Others feel like quiet castles built to keep the world away. Riven's home was not just a house, it was a fortress filled with silence, secrets, and watchful eyes. And for Kai, stepping through its tall gates felt like entering a life he never imagined for himself. The morning after Kai arrived, sunlight poured through large windows that looked too clean and perfect compared to his old apartment. The bed beneath him was soft, but sleep had been difficult. Every sound had made him sit up in fear. Footsteps in the hall. Doors opening and closing. Low voices speaking in serious tones. Nothing felt familiar. Kai slowly got dressed and stepped outside his room. The hallway was long and bright. Guards stood at different corners, each one bowing slightly when he passed. Their respectful actions made Kai nervous rather than proud. He had never been treated like someone important before. In the kitchen, he found Riven standing over a stove, staring at a cooking book as if it were a puzzle he could not solve. The Alpha looked serious and focused, but the smell in the air suggested the food was not going well. Kai watched quietly for a moment before offering help. Riven looked surprised but stepped aside without arguing. Kai showed him how to stir gently and how to keep the heat low. For the first time since arriving, Kai felt something normal, two people sharing a quiet morning instead of thinking about danger and rumors. While they ate, Riven explained more about his life. He led a powerful group that protected businesses and people who could not protect themselves. But enemies were everywhere, waiting for any weakness. That was why he wanted Kai to stay inside the safe walls for now. Kai listened carefully. The words sounded honest, yet the world Riven described felt heavy and frightening. Kai wondered if he truly belonged there. He was just an Omega who liked drawing and serving coffee, not someone strong enough for dangerous games. As the days passed, Kai began noticing small things about Riven that others might never see. The ruthless alpha who people feared was actually terrible at cooking and often forgot to eat unless someone reminded him. He quietly left fruit and warm drinks outside Kai's door every morning. He bought baby books and hid them under piles of work papers as if embarrassed to be seen reading them. One afternoon, Kai wandered into a quiet room filled with shelves of books and soft chairs. He found a stack of blank sketch papers waiting for him. No note was attached, but he knew who had placed them there. Kai felt a small warmth grow inside his chest. Still, the outside world did not stay quiet for long. News about Kai living with Riven spread quickly. Some people praised Riven for protecting his family. Others whispered that Kai was nothing more than a weak Omega being used for power. Kai tried to ignore the rumors, but sometimes they hurt more than he wanted to admit. Leo visited often, bringing snacks and cheerful stories. He laughed easily and tried to make Kai feel at home. Yet every time Riven entered the room, Leo's smile tightened for just a second too long. Kai noticed but did not understand why his best friend seemed so tense around the alpha. One evening, Riven returned home with a small bruise on his face. Kai rushed to bring medicine, his hands shaking with worry. Riven tried to say it was nothing, but Kai insisted on helping. As he cleaned the wound, he saw exhaustion in Riven's eyes, not the cold strength everyone talked about, but the tiredness of someone carrying too many burdens alone. Riven thanked Kai quietly. He admitted that he had spent years believing that showing kindness was a weakness. Meeting Kai had made him question that belief. The words surprised both of them, hanging softly in the air like a promise waiting to be understood. That night, Kai sat in the sketch room and drew a picture of a strong wall with flowers growing through the cracks. He realized that Riven was not only ruthless. He was also someone trying to learn how to be gentle again. But even as peace began to grow inside the fortress, shadows moved outside its gates. Enemies watched carefully, waiting for the right moment to strike. And someone close to Kai carried secrets that had not yet been revealed. The walls felt safe. But sometimes, the greatest danger came from the people already inside. Trust is a quiet thing. It grows slowly through shared laughter, warm memories, and promises whispered during hard times. Kai believed trust was strong enough to survive anything. He believed the people he loved would never hurt him. But sometimes, the deepest wounds come from the hands that once felt the safest. Life inside Riven's home had begun to feel calmer. Kai learned the names of the guards and discovered a peaceful garden behind the tall walls. Every morning he walked slowly through the flowers, breathing fresh air and talking softly to the baby growing inside him. Riven watched from a distance, pretending to check messages while secretly making sure Kai was safe. Leo continued to visit almost every day. He brought snacks from the old cafe and told funny stories to make Kai laugh. He teased Riven about his serious face and acted like everything was normal. Kai felt grateful to have a piece of his old life still close to him. Whenever doubt crept into his heart, Leo's cheerful presence pushed it away. One afternoon, Leo arrived looking nervous. He told Kai that someone from the cafe had asked about him and that rumors were spreading outside the city. Leo suggested they leave the house for a short walk to clear Kai's mind. Kai hesitated because Riven had warned him not to go out without protection, but Leo insisted it would be quick and safe. Kai trusted him. They walked through quiet streets near the edge of the city. The sky was cloudy, and the air felt heavy. At first, everything seemed normal. Leo talked about childhood memories and old jokes, trying to keep Kai relaxed. But soon, the path grew empty. The buildings looked unfamiliar. Kai felt a small wave of worry. Before he could ask questions, strangers appeared from the shadows. Their faces were cold, and their eyes were sharp. Kai stepped back, confused and afraid. He turned to Leo, expecting him to stand beside him like always. Instead, Leo avoided his eyes. The truth fell like a stone into Kai's heart. Leo admitted he had been working with a rival group. They believed Kai's connection to Riven could be used to weaken the powerful Alpha. Leo claimed he never wanted to hurt Kai personally, but he had been ordered to bring him outside the safe walls. His voice shook as he spoke, showing guilt mixed with fear. Kai's world shattered in silence. The friend he trusted like family had betrayed him. Memories of shared laughter and childhood promises felt suddenly fragile and painful. Kai's chest tightened, not only from fear but from deep heartbreak. He could not understand how someone who once protected him could now lead him into danger. The strangers moved closer, planning to take Kai away. But before they could reach him, the sound of engines filled the street. Riven's guards arrived quickly, blocking the attacker's path. Moments later, Riven himself stepped forward, his presence strong and fierce. His eyes burned with anger, not only at the enemies but also at the betrayal that had put Kai in harm's way. The confrontation was short. The attackers realized they could not win and retreated. Leo stood frozen, unable to run or speak. Riven's guards held him carefully, waiting for orders. Kai watched silently, tears filling his eyes as he faced the friend he once loved like a brother. Riven approached Kai slowly, checking for injuries with gentle hands. His voice softened when he asked if Kai was safe. Kai nodded, but his heart felt broken beyond words. He could not look at Leo again. Back at the fortress, silence filled the halls. Kai stayed in his room, holding his sketchbook but unable to draw. Trust felt like a fragile glass that had shattered into pieces too small to fix. He questioned his own judgment and blamed himself for leaving the house. Later that evening, Riven sat outside Kai's door without speaking. He did not push for conversation or demand explanations. He simply stayed close, showing support through quiet presence. It was the first time Kai realized that Riven's strength was not only in fighting enemies but also in standing beside someone during their weakest moments. Leo's betrayal changed everything. The safe world Kai had started to build felt uncertain again. He learned that danger did not always come from strangers, it could come from the people who knew your heart best. But even in pain, something new began to grow. Kai understood that healing would not come from hiding forever. And Riven, watching the Omega he cared about suffer, realized that protecting someone meant more than building strong walls. It meant learning how to be gentle with a broken heart. The storm inside Kai had reached its loudest moment. And now, the long journey toward healing was about to begin. Pain does not always shout. Sometimes it sits quietly in a person's chest, growing heavier with every passing hour. After Leo's betrayal, Kai carried a silence that felt louder than any storm. He moved through the large house like a shadow, speaking only when necessary and avoiding everyone's eyes, even Riven's. The fortress remained calm on the outside, but inside Kai's heart everything felt shaken. He blamed himself for trusting too easily. He replayed the moment over and over again, walking beside Leo, believing his words, stepping outside the safety Riven had worked so hard to build. Each memory felt like a sharp stone pressing against his chest. Riven noticed the change immediately. Kai stopped drawing. He barely ate. The gentle smiles that once softened the halls disappeared. Riven tried to give him space, thinking that silence might help him heal, but the distance only made the house feel colder. One morning, Riven brought breakfast to Kai's room like he always did. The tray sat untouched for hours. When Riven returned later, he found Kai sitting by the window, staring at the garden without really seeing it. The Omega's eyes looked tired and lost. Kai finally spoke, but his words were heavy with guilt. He said everything was his fault, that if he had listened to Riven and stayed inside, nothing bad would have happened. He called himself weak and careless. He said people around him only got hurt because he trusted too easily. Riven listened quietly, his jaw tight with emotion. He wanted to argue, to tell Kai he was not weak, but he understood that Kai needed to release the pain first. Then Kai said something that cut deeper than any accusation. He told Riven that maybe it would be better if he left the fortress altogether. He believed that staying near Riven only brought danger and problems. He said Riven deserved a strong partner, not someone who caused trouble. The words felt like a wall rising between them. Riven's calm mask finally cracked. He told Kai that leaving would not solve anything. He admitted that he had spent most of his life pushing people away because he feared losing them. He said he had learned to hide his feelings behind cold actions, believing that strength meant never showing weakness. For the first time, Riven spoke about his past. He shared stories of betrayal he had faced, friends he had lost, and the lonely path that turned him into the ruthless alpha people feared. He admitted that when he first met Kai, he did not understand kindness anymore. But Kai's gentle heart had reminded him that trust was still possible. Kai listened quietly, surprised by the honesty in Riven's voice. Riven then said something simple but powerful: Kai was not a burden. The mistake belonged to the person who betrayed trust, not the one who gave it. He explained that kindness was not weakness. In fact, it was the strongest thing Kai possessed. The room grew quiet. Both of them sat with emotions they had hidden for too long. Tears filled Kai's eyes, and for the first time since the betrayal, he allowed himself to cry openly. Riven stayed beside him, not trying to fix everything with words, but offering silent support. In that moment, something shifted between them. Kai realized that Riven was not just protecting him because of duty or responsibility. There was genuine care behind every action: the quiet breakfasts, the baby books hidden under work papers, the long hours spent watching over him from a distance. Riven also learned something important. Strength did not mean standing alone. It meant sharing pain and listening when someone was hurting. After their conversation, Kai slowly began to take small steps forward. He picked up his sketchbook again, drawing simple pictures of flowers growing after storms. He joined Riven for short walks in the garden. The laughter did not return all at once, but the heavy silence started to fade. Healing did not happen in a single day. But for the first time since Leo's betrayal, Kai felt less alone. The fortress felt warmer again, not because the walls had changed, but because the people inside were learning how to be honest with each other. And somewhere deep in their hearts, both Kai and Riven realized that their bond was becoming stronger than fear. The pain had not disappeared, but it had finally been spoken aloud. And sometimes, that is where true healing begins. Healing does not arrive like a loud celebration. It comes quietly, one small step at a time. After the long conversation that opened both Kai and Riven's hearts, the heavy silence inside the fortress slowly began to lift. The halls that once felt cold started to feel softer, filled with small moments of peace that grew stronger each day. Kai did not wake up suddenly happy or fearless. Some mornings he still felt the ache of betrayal. Some nights he remembered Leo's face and felt a sting in his chest. But instead of hiding from those feelings, he started to face them gently. He reminded himself that trusting someone had not been a mistake, it had been an act of courage. Riven noticed the change in small ways first. Kai began eating meals regularly again. He spent time in the garden, talking to the baby and sketching pictures of new beginnings. The flowers he drew were brighter than before, standing tall even after storms. Riven watched quietly, feeling proud but careful not to push Kai too fast. One afternoon, Riven suggested teaching Kai simple self-defense. At first, Kai laughed nervously, certain he was too weak for anything like that. But Riven explained that strength was not only about fighting, it was about confidence, awareness, and learning how to protect oneself emotionally and physically. They started with small lessons in the garden. Riven showed Kai how to stand firm, how to keep balance, and how to stay calm during fear. The training was gentle and respectful, never forcing Kai beyond what he felt ready for. Each successful movement made Kai smile a little more. He began to see himself not as a victim, but as someone capable of growth. Their daily routine became peaceful. Mornings were filled with walks through the garden. Afternoons included drawing sessions in the quiet sketch room. Evenings were spent sharing simple meals, sometimes laughing when Riven burned food despite trying his best. The fortress, once a place of tension, began to feel like a home. Riven changed too. He learned to speak more openly, asking Kai about his dreams and listening carefully to his thoughts. Instead of making decisions alone, he invited Kai into conversations about the future. The ruthless alpha people feared outside the walls slowly became a caring partner within them. One evening, Riven surprised Kai with a small trip outside the fortress. Surrounded by trusted guards, they visited a peaceful park filled with tall trees and quiet paths. Kai felt nervous at first, remembering the betrayal that had happened beyond the gates. But walking beside Riven, feeling safe and supported, he found the courage to enjoy the fresh air and open sky again. They sat together on a wooden bench as the sun set slowly. Kai talked about opening an art cafe someday, a place where people could feel safe, no matter who they were. Riven listened with a soft expression and promised to help make that dream real. For the first time since everything had changed, Kai felt hopeful about the future. But peace does not always last forever. One night, while reviewing security reports, Riven noticed strange movements near the edges of the city. Unknown groups had been asking questions about Kai and the baby. Old enemies were becoming restless again, looking for ways to break Riven's growing happiness. Riven chose not to tell Kai immediately, wanting to protect the fragile peace he had worked so hard to rebuild. Yet the tension in the air slowly returned. Guards increased patrols. Quiet whispers filled the halls once more. Kai sensed that something was wrong. His instincts had grown stronger through healing. Instead of hiding, he approached Riven and asked honestly what was happening. Riven hesitated but finally admitted that danger might be coming again. Instead of fear, Kai felt determination. He told Riven that he no longer wanted to be someone who only needed protection. He wanted to stand beside him as a partner, not behind him as someone helpless. His voice was calm and strong, a voice shaped by pain, healing, and growth. Riven saw the change clearly. The gentle Omega he met in the rainy cafe was still kind and soft-hearted, but now he also carried quiet strength. Together, they began preparing for whatever might come next, not with fear alone, but with trust in each other. The fortress stood strong, filled with hope and courage. But far beyond its walls, old shadows were gathering once more. And this time, Kai would not face them as the same person he had been before. Danger rarely announces itself with loud warnings. Sometimes it moves quietly, waiting for the moment when people feel safe again. After weeks of peace and healing, the fortress began to feel warm and steady, but outside its walls, enemies were watching carefully, planning their next move. Kai sensed the change before anyone said it aloud. Guards walked with sharper focus. Meetings lasted longer. The smiles in the halls became smaller. Even the garden felt different, as if the wind carried a quiet warning. Instead of fear, Kai felt a strong determination growing inside him. He remembered the lessons he had learned, how to stand firm, how to trust his instincts, and how to believe in his own strength. One evening, Riven gathered everyone in the main hall. His voice was calm but serious. He explained that a rival group had been asking questions about Kai and the baby. They believed hurting Riven's family would weaken him. The news filled the room with tension, but Kai stepped forward without hesitation. He told everyone he wanted to help, not hide. Riven looked at him with a mixture of pride and worry. He agreed to involve Kai in planning safe strategies, nothing dangerous, but enough to help him feel prepared. Kai listened carefully as they discussed secure routes, emergency signals, and ways to keep everyone safe without unnecessary fighting. For a few days, nothing happened. Then, late one afternoon, the fortress alarms rang. The sound echoed through the halls like a sudden storm. Guards rushed into position. Riven moved quickly, his calm focus guiding everyone around him. Kai's heart raced, but he remembered to breathe slowly, just like he had practiced during training. Through the security screens, they saw strangers approaching the outer gates. Their movements were confident, showing they believed they could break through. Among them stood a familiar figure, Leo. Kai felt a sharp pain in his chest. Seeing his former friend again brought back memories of laughter and betrayal at the same time. Leo's face looked tired and conflicted, but he stood beside the enemies who wanted to hurt the people Kai loved. The attackers tried to force their way inside, but the fortress defenses held strong. Riven's team worked together, blocking every path without causing unnecessary harm. Kai stayed in the safe room at first, helping monitor the screens and sending messages to the guards when needed. His calm thinking helped prevent mistakes during the chaos. At one moment, the enemies tried to create confusion by sending false signals. Kai noticed the pattern quickly, remembering something Riven had taught him about reading movements and intentions. He warned the team just in time, stopping a dangerous distraction from succeeding. The confrontation moved toward the main courtyard. Riven faced the rival leader directly, his presence strong and fearless. He made it clear that he would protect his family without hesitation. The rival group realized that their plan had failed. They had expected weakness, but instead found unity and strength. During the final moments, Leo stepped forward, looking at Kai with regret. He admitted that he had made terrible choices and had believed lies told by people who wanted power. He said he never meant for Kai to get hurt so deeply. His voice shook with guilt, but the damage he caused could not disappear with words alone. Kai listened silently. His heart felt heavy, but he no longer felt like the same person who had once depended on Leo's approval. He told Leo that forgiveness would take time and that trust could not be rebuilt easily. His voice was gentle but firm, a sign of the strength he had gained through healing. Seeing that their plan had failed and that Kai and Riven stood united, the enemy group finally retreated. The alarms faded, leaving behind a quiet fortress filled with relief and exhaustion. After the danger passed, Kai stood in the garden, breathing in the cool night air. Riven joined him, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. He told Kai how proud he was, not because Kai had fought, but because he had stayed calm, brave, and wise during a frightening moment. Kai realized something important. He was no longer the frightened Omega from the rainy night. He had grown into someone strong enough to face shadows without losing his kindness. The fortress felt peaceful again, but this time the calm felt earned. Together, Kai and Riven had faced danger not as protector and victim, but as partners standing side by side. And with the biggest battle behind them, a new chapter of life waited just ahead. After the shadows faded and the enemies retreated, the fortress felt different. The silence that followed was not heavy with fear like before. Instead, it carried a quiet feeling of relief and new beginnings. For the first time in a long while, everyone inside the walls could breathe without waiting for the next storm. Kai stood in the garden early one morning, watching the sun rise slowly over the tall gates. His hand rested gently over his growing belly. The cool air felt calm and peaceful, and birds moved freely through the sky. He thought about everything that had happened, the rainy night, the betrayal, the healing, and the battle they had just survived together. Riven joined him quietly, carrying 2 warm cups of tea. He had learned that Kai liked gentle mornings, and he tried to start each day with small acts of care. They sat side by side on a wooden bench, sharing a comfortable silence that felt warm instead of awkward. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the sunlight touch the flowers and trees around them. Finally, Kai broke the silence. He admitted that after everything they had faced, he had been thinking deeply about the future. He said he no longer wanted to stay only because he felt protected or responsible for the child. He wanted to stay because he had chosen Riven, not out of fear, but out of trust and love that had grown slowly between them. Riven listened carefully, his serious expression softening. He confessed that when he first learned about the baby, he had acted from duty rather than emotion. But over time, Kai's kindness and strength had changed him. He realized that protecting someone was not just about building walls, it was about building a life together. They spoke honestly about their fears. Kai worried about raising a child in a dangerous world. Riven worried about whether he could truly become a gentle father after living so long as a ruthless leader. But instead of hiding those fears, they shared them openly, promising to face every challenge side by side. Later that day, they began preparing for the baby's arrival. The fortress filled with small signs of hope, soft blankets, tiny clothes, and a quiet room slowly turning into a nursery. Riven tried assembling furniture but needed Kai's help more than he expected. Their laughter echoed through the halls, bringing warmth to everyone around them. Kai also started planning his dream for the future. He spoke about opening an art cafe where people from all backgrounds could feel safe and welcome. Riven supported the idea completely, offering to help find a peaceful location away from danger. The dream felt real for the first time, not just a wish drawn on paper. Even the guards and staff noticed the change. The fortress felt less like a place built for war and more like a home filled with life. People smiled more often. Music and soft conversations replaced tense whispers. One afternoon, Kai received a letter from Leo. It contained a simple apology and a promise to leave the city and start a new life far away. Kai read the letter quietly. He did not feel anger anymore, only a gentle sadness for what had been lost. He decided to keep the letter as a reminder, not of betrayal, but of how much he had grown. As weeks passed, Kai's strength continued to grow. He attended regular clinic visits, surrounded by Riven's constant support. Each heartbeat they heard during checkups made their bond stronger. Riven's eyes filled with quiet wonder every time he listened, as if realizing that a new chapter of life was truly beginning. One evening, during a peaceful dinner in the garden, Riven made a promise. He vowed to protect his family not through fear, but through kindness, honesty, and courage. He wanted to become someone their child could admire, a father who understood both strength and compassion. Kai smiled, feeling safe and loved in a way he had never experienced before. The past still existed, filled with pain and lessons. But the future no longer looked dark or uncertain. It looked bright and full of possibilities, new dreams, new laughter, and a family built on trust instead of fear. As the sun set behind the fortress walls, Kai and Riven stood together, hands gently intertwined. They were no longer strangers brought together by a single stormy night. They were partners choosing each other every day, ready to welcome a new life into a world they would shape together. And with hope filling their hearts, they prepared for the moment that would change everything once again, the arrival of their child. Some moments feel like the world is holding its breath. The quiet before a sunrise. The pause between heartbeats. For Kai and Riven, the arrival of their child was one of those moments, a beginning that would change everything, not just for them, but for the life they had created together. The fortress was calm, bathed in soft morning light. Kai rested in the room prepared for the baby, surrounded by blankets, tiny clothes, and sketches he had made during his months of waiting. Riven sat beside him, holding his hand, his usually sharp gaze softened by both awe and worry. For weeks, they had imagined this moment, but imagining could never prepare anyone for the reality of life's first cries. Kai's heart raced, not with fear, but with hope. Every challenge, every storm they had survived together, led to this one fragile, beautiful moment. He thought of the rainy night when he first met Riven, the betrayals and the battles, the days of healing, and the trust they had built from scratch. All of it led here, this small, precious life waiting to enter the world. Finally, the moment came. The cries of a newborn filled the room. Kai's eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from overwhelming love. Riven, usually so composed, couldn't hide his amazement. His hands shook slightly as he held the tiny being they had brought into life together. Kai looked at Riven, seeing strength and softness in the alpha he had grown to trust. The ruthless exterior had melted away, replaced by someone who could love, protect, and nurture. And now, as they looked down at their child, both understood that life had given them a chance to start over, not just as parents, but as partners bound by choice, not circumstance. The fortress that had once been a place of fear now felt like a home. Guards and staff quietly celebrated from outside the room, their smiles genuine, their hearts touched by the joy that radiated from Kai and Riven. The garden outside, which had witnessed so many quiet conversations and small lessons, seemed to bloom brighter in the morning sun. Kai gently cradled the baby, whispering promises of love, safety, and happiness. He thought about the art cafe he wanted to open, imagining a world where people could feel safe, loved, and free to express themselves. Riven squeezed his hand, silently promising that together they would make that world real, not just for themselves, but for the life they had created. Later, when Riven held the baby, he felt a new kind of responsibility, not just as a leader or protector, but as a father. He looked at Kai with gratitude and affection, realizing that the true strength he had always sought was not about ruling through fear, but through love and care. He vowed silently that no matter what storms came, he would protect this family and cherish every moment. The sun rose higher, spilling golden light across the walls of the fortress. Kai, Riven, and their child sat together, forming a new family. The past, filled with betrayal, pain, and fear, was not forgotten, but it no longer controlled them. It had shaped them, strengthened them, and brought them to this moment of joy. In the quiet of the morning, Kai whispered softly, "We're going to be okay. We have each other." Riven smiled, the kind of smile that spoke of battles fought, hearts healed, and love chosen every day. "Yes," he replied, holding both Kai and the child close. "We'll be more than okay. We'll be strong together." And for the first time in a long while, Kai felt completely at peace. The world outside could be chaotic, full of challenges and dangers, but inside their fortress, a family had been born. A family built on trust, courage, and love. The storm had passed. The healing was complete. And the future stretched ahead like a path of sunlight, full of hope, laughter, and new beginnings.